It was a wild, stormy evening in London when I found myself again settled in the armchair beside Holmes's fireplace. The wind howled down Baker Street, rattling the window panes like some restless creature outside. Holmes sat opposite me with his long fingers pressed together, listening to the storm with the same calm he would give to a violin concerto. We were just about to enjoy a quiet evening when Mrs. Hudson announced a visitor. A young man stepped in, dripping from the rain but clearly relieved to be inside. His face was pale with worry, and he clutched a damp envelope in his hand. Holmes rose and gestured for him to sit. "Pray tell us what troubles you." The young man introduced himself as John Openshaw. His story, he explained, began years earlier with his uncle, Elias Openshaw, who had lived in America before returning to England. Elias was a stern, silent man with a fiery temper. He owned a large plantation before the war, but something about his past clung to him like a shadow. One day, Elias received a letter containing nothing but 5 dried orange pips, and the letters KKK scrawled on the envelope. After he opened that letter, John said, swallowing hard, he became terribly afraid. He burned old papers in his attic night after night. He locked his doors. He started drinking heavily. Holmes sat forward, his eyes sharp. Then, just weeks later, Elias Openshaw was found dead. Apparently an accident, though nothing seemed quite right. John inherited his uncle's papers and moved into the house. Months passed. Then John's father, Elias's brother, received a letter with 5 orange pips in it as well. His father laughed it off at first. "A silly prank," he said. But Holmes and I exchanged a look. Pranks do not cross an ocean and strike 2 men in the same family. Only a few days after receiving the letter, John's father went out for a walk and never returned alive. The police claimed he slipped into a river during a storm. John's voice trembled as he said it, but Holmes gently encouraged him to continue. Just yesterday, John himself received a letter. It too contained 5 small orange pips, and the message, "Put the papers on the sundial." John pulled the envelope from his coat and placed it in Holmes's hand. Holmes examined it silently for a long moment. Then he said, "You must place no papers on any sundial. Instead, you must return home at once and tell the police everything." "But," John whispered, "the police do not believe me." Holmes stood, tall and confident. "Rest assured, Mr. Openshaw, I shall set the matter right." John Openshaw left looking deeply relieved. When the door closed behind him, Holmes turned to me, his face stern. "This is not a prank, Watson. This is deadly." He explained that the initials KKK were used in America by a violent secret society, the Ku Klux Klan. Elias Openshaw had once been part of it, and had stolen some of their records when he fled the country. The organization wanted their papers back and would hunt down anyone who possessed them. "That is why his uncle burned his letters," Holmes said quietly. "And why the Klan killed him, and John's father. And now, John himself is in danger." Holmes telegraphed warnings to the police in Johnstown and prepared a plan. "If John follows my advice," he said, "he will be safe." But fate dealt a cruel blow. The next morning's newspaper lay on our breakfast table. A headline caught my eye, and my breath froze. John Openshaw had been found dead. He had slipped into a river on a dark road just as his father had. The police called it an accident, but Holmes's face darkened with anger. "Accident," he repeated softly. "No, Watson, no accident at all." For one of the very few times I ever saw it, Holmes looked truly shaken. "If only he had come to me sooner," he murmured. Holmes stood and paced the room with fierce determination. "I shall not allow these murderers to escape." He sent messages to the harbors, to the Coast Guard, and to agents watching foreign ships. He discovered that an American schooner called the Lone Star, a hint toward its origin, had been docked in England recently, and was now set to return home. Holmes prepared a letter addressed to the ship's captain. Inside, he placed 5 orange pips, along with a note that read simply, "The papers are with Sherlock Holmes." He sealed the envelope. "It is only fair," he said quietly. The Lone Star sailed out of the harbor soon afterward. Weeks later we learned what became of the ship. It never reached America. A storm had struck it at sea. The ship was found wrecked with no survivors. Holmes never commented on it directly. He merely sat in his chair one evening, staring thoughtfully into the fire. And though he said nothing, I knew what he was thinking. Justice sometimes arrives in ways even Sherlock Holmes cannot predict.